enclosure number 4 attached to it, and the other conditions may be and any other conditions may be added to individual consents where Basildon Council determines they are appropriate. They are termed special conditions and they will be listed on the consent. The special conditions must also be complied with. In accordance with Basildon Borough Council street trading consent policy, before a street trading consent is granted or renewed, the council will normally consult the various persons and groups in respect of a new application. A 28-day period is provided for comments to be submitted. Consultation is carried out with Essex County Council Highways, Essex Police, Essex Fire and Rescue Service, Basildon Council's Environmental Health Services, Basildon Council's Planning Services, Basildon Council's Community Safety, ward councillors, relevant parish and town councillors, and any other consultee that officers consider appropriate. A public notice was also displayed by the applicant at the location for the consultation period. During the 28 days consultation period, one comment was received from Essex County Council and is shown as enclosure number 5. In relation to this application, the street trading consent, if granted, will include the standard conditions enclosure 4, as well as those required by Essex County Council. The licensing authority also received 62 representations against and 7 in favour during the consultation period. Copies of the representations are attached at enclosure number 6. The recommendations. The subcommittee considers this report together with any oral submissions given at the hearing from the applicant and others making relevant representations before determining the application for a grant of a street trading consent. The following steps are available to the subcommittee. 1. To grant as applied for. B. To grant consent with amendments such as adjusted hours, a limited consent to test the impact of the trader and or additional conditions. Street trading consent permits may be granted up to a period of 1 year only or for a lesser duration. Or C. Reject the application. Chairman, that's the end of the report.
Thank you very much, Roy. Very thorough and informative as always. There's no questions from me at this point. Councillor Lawrence, any questions from you?
Nothing from me. Thank you, Roy.
I think we'll then move on. Actually, Councillor Smith, have you got any questions or points of clarification you'd like to ask? Lovely. In that case, well, as the applicant is not present and as the statutory consultee, there's no statutory consultees present, we will then move to yourself, Councillor Smith, to present your case. I'd advise you to be as succinct as possible, Councillor Smith, but there's no time limit for you.
Good, it's not like planning. You get halfway through and then someone starts going bleep, bleep, bleep. I'm here today as the County Councillor. My colleague, Councillor Walter Brown, has publicly opposed it. My other 2 ward colleagues for Langdon Hills Ward are members of the Licensing Committee and they felt it was inappropriate to comment. This issue came up last year and as you've seen by the numbers of complaints, 62, it's quite unpopular with residents. Why is it unpopular with residents? It is deeply out of keeping with the area. The estate was built in a particular manner, laid out in a particular style, and this was where it is operating from, was built as a coach stroke bus lay-by. So once he's parked his mobile van there, if he gets any customers, he's got space for 1, maybe 2 vehicles. I have seen photographs from my constituents showing at weekends there are cars parked at the junction of Nightingales and Mandeville Way while they're waiting for their order. And just to remind people, Mandeville Way's speed limit is 40 miles an hour and they're coming off at a roundabout where the speed limit on Nightingales drops to 30. It is dangerous. I have asked the police to attend to protect that junction. You'll appreciate the fact the police do not have that resource to keep coming out for a kebab van. So, as the county member, I took this up with Essex Highways, and Essex Highways was about as helpful as an ashtray on a motorbike, but that's nothing new there. And they said this is a problem Basildon Council needs to deal with. You need a street traders permit scheme. So, as the Cabinet Member for Law, Order Enforcement, I spoke with my officers and I thank the officers for getting this policy adopted so that we as an authority can consider these requests, approve or reject them as needs be. My other concern is, and this has been raised by constituents, where does the operator have conveniencies? Is he superhuman? And once he's done that, where does he go? It's not like operating in the Tesco's car park nearby. There's another mobile takeaway vehicle of a similar sort at the car park at Great Berry Shops right in front of the pavilion, and I understand that operator uses the public facilities at the pavilion, so it's safe, clean, hygienic, no risk of public exposure. But where does the gentleman operating this go when the call of nature comes? And I've had allegations from constituents, but no one wants to put it in writing, so I will consider them allegations. But from my point of view, you have to be superhuman to last that length of time without needing public conveniences. So there is it there, and it's also the smell from the cooking equipment, and also he's got bottles of gas and other flammable materials right next to deciduous bushes. What if there was a fire? It also puts people's properties at risks. At the end of the day, this was built as a bus coach lay-by. There are buses and coaches that pull into the Great Berry Estate, some of them during the school run, some of them at other events, and this coach lay-by has been taken away. And as a result, I have made a request to the South Essex Parking Partnership to also put double yellow lines there, as you've seen at other bus stops, but you'll appreciate the fact they will find every reason to say no, because a traffic regulation order is £5,000. So therefore it falls to this committee to look at the facts, look at the evidence, look at the views of my constituents, and I respectfully request that you reject this application, because this is in totally the wrong location. If he wishes to operate in Langdon Hills, he could speak to nearby Tesco's. We've got a huge car park, and that would alleviate most of the complaints. So that's the choice for the operator, to speak to Tesco's. I know it's not your pools within your remit, but I'm not asking you to put this guy out of business, but this guy needs to find a suitable location for his business. This is the problem. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I have one or two questions for you, but first, Councillor Lawrence, are there any questions you'd like to raise to Councillor Smith?
Yeah, just want to. I'm just reading some of the letters here from your residents, and one of them actually mentions about urinating behind a tree or something like that. So just want to mention that.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Yep, one for me, Councillor Smith. So I think certainly in considering whether to grant consent, I believe my understanding is the guidance is that the subcommittee should grant unless there are exceptional circumstances. I think you raised a number of reasons why you'd like this application objected. Would you kind of give you an opportunity to highlight ones you think are exceptional circumstances to justify the rejection of this application?
Thank you. Well, it's pretty clear the estate of Great Berry was built to be a family estate, and having a kebab van right on top on people's houses where they're going to have that smell in summer. In the summer, my surgery at Langdon Hills on a Saturday for the summer months was just besieged with people attending, complaining about the smell of the kebab van, more so the cooking smells, and also the late night noise of customers. There were some customers who'd got a cab, they was under the influence of alcohol, so you can imagine how noisy that is when they're chatting and laughing out amongst themselves. And in the height of summer, people have their windows open. This location was a bus coach lay-by, not for a late night kebab van where residents would be disturbed when the weather turns nice and they have to keep the windows open by the smell of cooking and the noise of their customers. It's not acceptable.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. And I think one point just to pick up on the response from Essex County Council Highways. I know you touched on Essex Highways in your initial contribution. I think, yeah, it's Essex Highways, their response says that they're happy for consent to be granted, obviously subject to conditions. And I know I just think to pick up on the highways points you mentioned, and I think you particularly zeroed in on issues around highway safety. How do you approach certainly the highways, the Essex Highways response, which says that they're happy for consent to be granted subject to conditions?
Well, as anyone who's ever raised anything at the planning committee, they never variate. I, as the county member, took that up with them because they are the landowner. They don't want to get involved. Essex Highways is owned by a private company called Ringway Jacobs. This doesn't make them any profit. So this is why they're happy, this is why they're not interested, and this is why they're apathetic. It doesn't make their shareholders richer. And in correspondences, I don't know if the officers have the emails I forward onto licensing from Essex Highways that I wrote to them, where Essex Highways went, well, you need a street traders permit, you deal with the enforcement, go away, our shareholders come first.
Thank you for that response, Councillor Smith. So there's nothing further from me, and unless there's any further comments from yourself, Councillor Lawrence, I think before we then go to summing up, I think just to kind of provide a bit of an overview of the issues raised so far in the application, which seeks consent for street trading Monday to Sunday between 4 p.m. in the afternoon and 10 p.m. in the evening. I think we've had a number of points raised, certainly amongst the local objections from residents, which I think are around 67. We've heard from Councillor Smith. I think it was echoed many of those objections, ranging from the vehicle no longer being mobile to public health and public safety concerns from highways, noise, smell, odour, fire risks, etc. And I think also, some of the resident objections relate to closeness to Great Berry School, although I believe that it's 500 metres from the school, although I think guidance says it's 100 is the guidance, just to clarify that point as well. And obviously conscious that I think again guidance says that exceptional circumstances need to be presented to justify a decision to refuse consent. And I think with that, Councillor Lawrence, is there anything extra you'd like to mention at this stage on the points raised?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we'll then go round to kind of summing up, really. So firstly, we'll go to the licensing officer, then we'll come back to you, Councillor Smith, if there's anything wish to say. But firstly, Roy, is there anything you wish to add before we proceed?
No, thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Smith?
All I would say is you're here to protect the public, as all councillors are. That's why local authorities were formed. Local authorities were formed to protect the public health. And there is highway issues, public toilet issues, the hedging, the bottles of gas, the noise from customers, the smell of the cooking. If this subcommittee approves this sets a precedent, I feel, for other applications that are completely unsuitable. That's what I'd ask you, and I'd politely ask you to recommend a rejection, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. I think it's worth mentioning it's every case on its merits. I think every case is seen on its merits without prejudice or discussion of precedents. But I think with that, thank you, Councillor Smith, for your contributions, and to the licensing officer. The subcommittee will now withdraw to consider the evidence that's been presented, along with the governance officer and the legal officer as well, to obtain any legal advice if required in coming to a decision. And then once the subcommittee has come to a decision, then we'll bring yourselves back into the room to read that out and close the hearing. So thank you. We'll now withdraw. Thank you for waiting outside patiently, everybody. The subcommittee has now come to a decision on the application, and I will now read out the decision notice. So, decision. Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1982, Schedule 4, Street Trading, application for a street trading consent, Mr Kebab, Nightingales, Langdon Hills. In reaching its decision, the subcommittee has taken into account the relevant parts of the written and oral evidence before them, the relevant parts of the Council's street trading policy, the relevant parts of the guidance issued by the Secretary of State. The subcommittee has decided as follows: that the subcommittee reject the application. Reasons. The subcommittee considered the merits of the application before them today and heard from the objector who spoke on behalf of his constituents. The applicant was not in attendance to provide evidence to the subcommittee to alleviate any of the concerns that have been raised in respect of health and safety concerns due to the proximity of the kebab van to the residential properties, noise and smell nuisance, and location of the lay-by. Additionally, there was no evidence to support that the applicant was adhering to food and safety hygiene due to a lack of presence of toilet facilities. Therefore, taking into account the Council's policy in respect of street trading, the subcommittee was satisfied that the application for consent should be refused. Date of effect, 4th of March 2026. There is no right of appeal against refusal to issue consent. Therefore, any applicant that is aggrieved by the Council's decision has an option to seek a judicial review. So with the decision now read, that concludes this item, the hearing, and as there are no further items on the agenda, I'll bring the meeting to a close. I'd like to